Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Steve Mahoney. I am a mentor with the Greater Hartford chapter of SCORE, and I'm joined by Kathleen Thompson, who is also with SCORE, and today's guest speaker, Melissa John, who is the CEO of Lauren Simone Publishing. Today, she is going to be talking about funding your small business with grants. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Melissa.
Thank you so much, Steve and Kathleen. All right, so welcome everyone. Hello, business owners. So we have nonprofits in the room, professional services, e-commerce, and other. I'd love to learn more about your businesses. We have about half full-time, half part-time committed to your small businesses. That's excellent. And we have about 60% who have not applied for a grant. So feel free to ask questions, but I'll be as thorough as I can. But as I'm going through, write your questions down, drop them in the chat, and I'll be sure to answer all of them. So today I'm going to talk about what's a grant. Most of you probably know, that's why you're here, to learn about how to get them. So I'll share 10 steps on how to apply for your grants. And then I'm going to share some resources about where you can find these grants. But I want to remind you that the most important part is actually preparing for it, not finding them. You can find them, but if you don't have the materials to submit, then you're not going to get the grant. So let's focus on those 10 steps. That's what we'll emphasize. And then I'll talk about the pros and cons. Of course, it's great to get some free money, but are there other things that you need to consider? And then for those who might not yet be eligible for grants, I'm going to share some other resources and you'll have this full presentation to your disposal. So what is a grant? It's money that's given to a person, business, or corporation by federal, state, local government, or private businesses. Especially during COVID, there were a lot of businesses like Amazon, American Express, Coca-Cola, Verizon, even Venmo has a grant, right? So they're giving you money that you can do what you want with it. It's for a specific project and anyone can apply, right? There's types for small business owners, including women, minorities, veterans, and disabled Americans. So many people think you should hire a grant writer, but trust me, you can apply for the grant. It takes a lot of time. You have to be prepared. Organization has to be one of your strengths, and time management is important, and support, because you need to get feedback before you submit. So let's talk about these different steps. All right, step one, research. I'm a researcher by training, so this kind of come natural for me. But before you even look for the grant specifically, you have to understand your own business. Why did you get in business? What is your purpose? What problems are you trying to solve? Are you able to articulate your business goals to someone else outside of yourself and outside of your team? What industry are you in? So we heard retail, professional services, e-commerce, but for those that say other, why didn't you fit into these categories? Like, so what industry are you specifically? How do you identify? And what are your project needs? So you have a business and you want to make money and you want to hire people and you want to increase your time and freedom and set your own hours. That's why we became business owners. But specifically, what project do you have in mind right now? Are you just looking to increase your personnel? Are you looking to do marketing and advertising? Do you need to update your website? Once you know what you need the money for, then it's easier to find the grants to target to meet that specific need. Okay. So as I said before, there are many different types of grants. There's local, state, corporate, and federal. You need to know which ones you're eligible for, which ones you have access to. I'm going to go through each of these grants and the types of grants that they come in. Most grants are competitive grants, right? It's also called a discretionary funding. The reason they're called competitive grants is because you're competing with other businesses for the same amount of money. So sometimes you'll find a grant where it says, we have $10,000 and we're only going to give it to one business, all right? Or only eligible businesses will get the money. But even when you're eligible, you might not get it. And that's why it's considered competitive. Then there are formula grants. So federal government might give the local government money and say there are businesses that need needs. Maybe there was a recent disaster, maybe there was a pandemic, but here's some money, distribute this money. But how you distribute it? You distribute it based on certain qualifiers. So how big is your need? Do you have a certain revenue? Can you prove that you'll use it wisely? Okay, so competitive grants, not everybody receives the funding. Formula grants, everybody receives funding, but not everybody receives the same amount. Then there's what we call pass-through grants. And that's kind of what I alluded to earlier, where the government gives money to the state, then the state gives it to the local government. So like I live in East Hartford and I can apply to East Hartford for a grant for my business to say, I need money because I want to hire. I need money because I want to market, okay? So that's called a pass-through grant. Then we have continuation grants. These grants typically are for like human service programs. So if I have a nonprofit organization and I'm looking to feed the hungry, and I need equipment or I need staff, but the mission that I'm on, I need to continue doing it. So I need to continually get funding. So there's some grants where you can literally apply for them every year. It's not automatically renewed. You have to apply again and again and again, and have to demonstrate that you actually use the money for what you said you'd use it. You didn't waste it. And it actually benefited. You could show how you executed and how it benefited your organization and how it will continue to grow your programs. So you have to actually have evidence. Then we have what's called block grants. This is where special organizations such as public health, law enforcement, or other social services can say, we're trying to do an improvement project. So like, let's say the law enforcement said, after COVID, we realized that we need more social workers working in law enforcement. Or maybe a firefighter station might say, we want to purchase a van so we could do critical care rather than run people to the hospital. We can care for them immediately after the fire. So that's a block grant. Then we have research grants. So I'm in academia. If I'm going to do a research project, if I want funding for my lab, so you usually think about science when you think about these kind of grants, but it also includes social science, education, technology, and business. So if you have a specific project that can contribute to like discovery or innovation, for example, let's say you are coming up with an app that can help mental health professionals to find patients or to match patients. Let's say patients want to meet people who have the same race or gender. So if you developed an app, that you can actually get research funding for that. So we're talking about a lot of different types of grants, and you're like, none of these fit me. Don't worry. Here we go. This one's for you. So what you're looking for is a private grant. These tend to come from non-governmental organizations like nonprofits and other companies, like I said, Coca-Cola, Verizon. These are corporate organizations that offer private grants to provide opportunities for you to fund your various projects, okay? So these are the ones you need to be searching for. As I said before, you need to become a researcher, right? You can just simply go to Google and type in research grants or business grants or grant for small business owners. So your database is Google. Google can tell you everything, okay? Or you can go specifically to government websites like grant.gov, or you can use your network. Reach out to SCORE and say, I'm interested in expanding my business. Where can I find grants? A lot of the grants that I applied for, literally my mentors emailed me and said, hey, I heard about this grant. It's due in 3 days. Apply for it, which is why you need to be prepared. Because if you have all your materials, then it's as simple as copy and pasting in your information and pressing submit. Right? So I'm going to share with you later different places to find your grants, whether it's industry specific, so are you a daycare, are you an automotive, or where can I get grants from the state? I have those resources here, so you don't have to try to write them all down because you'll have access to them. And here are some examples of corporate grants. So what I want you guys to do is to do your search and copy and paste these different grants in what's called an Excel sheet or a spreadsheet. Okay, so you have to be organized. You get a spreadsheet. I use Excel. You can use Google Sheets. It's free. Here are some of the top 10 sheets that are out there, right? So get a spreadsheet and literally you're going to organize the information. As you're finding it, instead of writing it on a piece of paper or a journal, you're going to put it in a database. You're creating your own database, okay? And I'll tell you what to put in that database shortly. As you're looking at the grants, what are the eligibility criteria? How much is a grant? If you know you need $20,000, do you really want to be applying for a grant that's $500? It might not be the best use of your time, right? So look how much the grant is. You also want to see how competitive is the grant. So for example, there was this one grant I applied for that said, we're going to give 100 businesses $10,000. Now that you can apply for. But if it says we're going to give one business $10,000, you're like, all right, I don't know how competitive I am. Do I want to go after something that's going to really be hard to get? Okay, so look at the eligibility. Does your business fit? How much is it? Is it worth my time? What are the guidelines? What do they need me to submit? And when do I need to submit it by? Do I have the time to meet that deadline? And does it happen again? There's some that are cyclical. So some will come out in May and December or January and June. So if you miss a January deadline, you can prepare knowing it's going to come back in June. See? So here's an example of my personal spreadsheet. So in Google, I simply create a new spreadsheet and I create categories: the company name or the funder, the grant description or the eligibility requirements, the link to apply, because you don't want to have to bookmark 100 links or have to be searching for it every time. So I'm putting in the link. This is where I go to send my information. Then I want to know how much money is it, how often are they giving it, when is the due date, and that's basically the information they'll provide. Now, for my own organization, I'm going to share, like, save the information for myself. Did I apply to it? Okay, so I save the date that I applied, and then I want to keep notes. Did I receive an email that said they received it, they're reviewing it? And that's where I keep my notes to say that there's updating. You want to know, will there be an interview? Will there be a press release, right? So you keep your notes, and then you keep dates of when you receive those information. And then finally, your status, because this is going to be something you're going to use every single year. So you keep adding to this database. And if you got the award, you said it was accepted or you received it. If you didn't get it, you put rejected. If you got rejected, apply again next year, right? Sometimes I'll save the information and put not eligible. Doesn't mean, and the reason I save it is because I can become eligible, because sometimes they'll say, you must be in your 7th year of business, you must be in your 10th year of business. So at some point I will be, right? So I save all the information in this spreadsheet, and this is how I stay organized. And this is the most important part. Getting it is not the most important part. It's being organized. All right. So now that you have your nice database, your own homemade database, you want to ensure that your business meets the criteria, because it doesn't make sense for you to apply to a grant that you don't qualify for, right? So step 1, do your research, make sure you know your business, and make sure you find some grants. Step 2, review the grant requirements. Step 3, here is where we need to start getting our organization. We need to create a folder on our laptop, and we name it grant documents or business documents. Do you have a business plan? Oh yeah, some of you are over 6 years old. I wrote one when I first started, but oh, that thing is dusty. I haven't looked at it. This is your opportunity to update it. You need to have your executive summary, your business industry overview, your market analysis, the competition, your sales and marketing plan, your ownership plan, your financial plan, okay? Make sure you have all of this and then save it as a PDF. Now, a lot of times people say, I don't want anyone knowing my business secrets. I don't want to share everything. Have two. Have one that's really detailed for yourself, where you're updating your strategies, and have another that's more, not vague, but not as detailed, and it's not releasing your secrets, okay? The other thing that you need to have is, have you ever done a pitch? Have you ever described your business in 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 7 minutes? And have you recorded yourself doing it? Some of these like more fun applications won't ask for all this paperwork. They'll say, can you please submit a video? Tell us about yourself, tell us about your business, and why you think you deserve this grant. So do you know how to use your cell phone? Do you know how to record yourself? Do you know how to upload your video document in a usable format that you can submit it, okay? So these are some of the necessary documents you need. All right, this one is very tricky for some people. When we start talking about the numbers, people start saying, oh, I don't like the numbers. This is where a mentor is very valuable. Steve is my mentor, and he has been so instrumental to my success. He's helped me with my income statements, my balance sheet, my cash flows, and equity, okay? My accountant helps me with my tax documents, and in my folder, I have it for every year. Whether you use a Schedule C or if you file independently because you're not an LLC or a corp, right? Just have all those documents, just name them by year. So you could say tax 2020, tax 2021, tax 2022, and whichever ones they ask for, you're able to just upload it as a PDF, okay? Now, another thing they'll ask for is called a financial projection. Basically, they want to know, where will you be in 5 years? So if you made 50,000 this year, will you make 70 next year, and then 100 the following year, and so on and so forth. So if you don't know how to do it, there's this app called Life Plan. On all of these are some other apps that you can use, but the one I use is Life Plan. I think it's like $11 a month. You can pay or you can cancel when you're not using it, just to see what it looks like. But basically, you look at your tax papers and you enter all of that information in it, and it will forecast where you'll be in 5, 10 years. All right. Write down your questions if you have any questions. Okay. This is important as well. When was the last time you updated your resume? Who are you as a person? Why would anyone give you money? How do I know that you have the skills necessary to make your business successful? You were a nurse yesterday, but today you have a restaurant business. Show me some things that connect the dots, okay? That is for more private corporations, private grants. If you're applying for federal grants because you want a corporate or government project because you want to be a contractor, you need to have a capability statement. A capability statement is a promotional or marketing statement about your business that says, these are my capabilities, these are my skills, these are the companies that I've worked with, these are the things that I've done over the year. And you have to think about the audience in mind. It's really for a government buyer or a prime contractor. So sometimes you'll have to upload it, sometimes you won't. But the key is to always be prepared. Be prepared for what may come. So you have all your documents saved, and when needed, you upload it, you submit, and you're done, right? You want to make applying for grants easy and quick and efficient as possible. Still with me? Okay. All right. One of the documents you may or may not need, depending on the type of grant you're applying for, are called reference letters or recommendation letters. Typically, I haven't had to accept when I was applying for research grants. For research grants, I had to get 2 to 3 letters from a fellow colleague, an employer, but usually two to four, right? So you want someone to say that you're a person of integrity, you're hardworking, you're on time, you meet deadlines, sing your praise, because who can sing our praise better than ourselves? But we need objective letters, okay? So if you can either ask your mentors, your advisors, your coworkers for letters and just save them for when needed, or you can just think about who are the 4 people, the 4 persons I would ask, and just keep a list, right? Keep that in there. So of course, as the cartoon says, are all of these letters of recommendation from your mother because your mother loves you the best, right? And they want the best for you. But that's not objective. You need an objective review of who you are as a person, especially if someone's giving you their money. Okay, so we talked about a business plan. So a business plan has your executive summary, talks about all the things about your business. But we're not talking about a business plan. We're talking about a grant proposal. You need to have a compelling story to explain how is your business unique? How will you use this business? How will you be effective? How will you add value? Why should we give you the money, right? So you want to write really well, but you also want to be a storyteller. You want to show the impact of your business. And I'll go into more details in a second. So you want to share your objectives. What things are you trying to accomplish? You want to make sure that these goals are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and not too lofty. And you want to share that you can actually achieve it in this lifetime, right? So you want to be timely. How are you going to execute those goals, those objectives that you have for your business? What is your plan of action to ensure that you say you want 10 new hires by the end of the year? How do you plan to do that? Where are you going to find these people? Are you going to go to Indeed? Are you going to hire friends and family? You say you want to have a marketing budget. Do you know where you're going to market? Are you going to pay for a billboard? How much is a billboard? Do people even look at billboards anymore? Are you going to do radio and TV? Are you going to do Facebook marketing? So you need to be able to say that I've thought about my business. This is where I want to go. And these are the steps necessary to get to where I want to go. Okay. So in doing so, it's all about your timeline. So you can say, my business was established in 2014. We merged with a company in 2015. We increased our staff in 2018. And then say what you plan in the future. We plan to be acquired. We plan to merge. We plan to become a corp. Outline very detailed where you began, how you've grown. People love to see growth, and show how, if you give me this grant, this is where I can be in 10 years. Okay? But if you don't know that, then you can't convince a funder that they should give you money. So you need to know where you're going to go. You need to have a vision for your business. So one way to really compel people to give you money is to show that you're not just for yourself. It's not just, I want to be a millionaire, right? It's not just you that's going to be better, but the environment around you will be better. So for example, I want to purchase more sustainable packaging. When people open my wrapper and they throw it on the ground, it's going to decompose, so it will not cause any more damage to our environment. I want to hire people in my neighborhood. I want to increase revenue in our local community. I won't even ask if you have a felony, because I feel like whether you have a felony or you have a substance use disorder, you have the right to employment. And I want to help my community by hiring people without asking for those questions. You see where I'm going with this? Our food will have less artificial ingredients, lower sugar, right? We want to ensure food security. So be able to tell your story, not just I need to hire people, but these are the benefits of giving me the money, because these are the outcomes of my business, right? So you want to have impact. Okay, so you did your search, you went on YouTube, you went on Google, you found all these grants, but are you listening? Are you reading? Are you following directions accurately? What do I mean by that? If it's a written document and they ask for 500 words, you only gave 200. Or maybe they asked for 200 and you only gave 50. You want to follow the fonts. Do they want Times New Roman, Arial? So word limit, fonts, do they want a PDF? Do they want a Word doc? Do they want a spreadsheet? So make sure you're submitting in the right format. Make sure you're submitting in the right type. Do they want written, audio, or video? And what is the procedure? Do they want you to do it online? So is it something where you go to their website, you click browse, you click attach, and you press submit and it's done? Or is it send your submission to this email and you have to send all the documents via email? Is it mail? Some people still have you make copies of your documents and mail it in. Or is it in person? Or is it a combination of all of those things? Is it step 1, step 2, step 3? So make sure that you're reading very carefully and following the instructions, because you don't want to do all of this work and then end up not getting the grant because you didn't submit a document or submit it in the right format. Okay. All right. Money again. So you're asking for $10,000 or $50,000. What are you going to use it for? I love your story. You have a compelling proposal, but I need more details. What do you want the money for? How are you going to use it? Okay. So as you're thinking about your budget, you want to think, am I going to use it for personnel? Am I going to use it for travel? Am I going to purchase equipment? Like maybe you own a restaurant and you need a new stove. Are you going to purchase supplies like paper and printers and general office supplies? But don't just create a budget saying, yeah, I'm going to do 50% here and 20% here and 10% there. But think about, what are the rules for getting this grant? Am I even allowed to put the budget for personnel? Because not everybody pays for staff, right? Not everybody pays for equipment. So you want to make sure that the grant you're applying to applies with the budget and the needs of your project. So here's what a budget would look like. You put your budget item, and there are 2 areas. There's the expenses and there's the income. So the income would show, if I got this grant, this is how many products I would sell. This is how many services I'd be able to deliver. And with your grant, that will be my total income for the year. Now, when I subtract my direct costs, so my salaries, my materials, advertising, technology, as well as my indirect costs, such as the rent, utilities, I am now either there's money left over or you're clean, right? You need to show that if your project is $20,000, that you'd be able to make this much money because of it, or it would help you to be profitable because of whatever, right? So you need to be able, Steve can explain all of this to you. He's the finance guru. But basically you have to show that if my project is $40,000 and the grant is $20,000, I still need to show where I'm going to make this $20,000 up for. And that's what we mean by detailed budget. What are you using the money for? And if you only get some of the grant, how do you plan to fulfill your mission if you don't get all the money? All right, we're almost finished. 3 more steps. So now you have everything. You have all your resume, your capability statement, your business proposal. You have your budget nicely detailed. Your Excel sheet is organized. You have all your information. You've literally written your proposal and you feel confident. It's time to get some review before you press submit. Send it to your mentor, send it to a member of your team, send it to your business partner, and have them review it. Sometimes it's hard for us to catch our own errors. So they can check for errors, they can ensure clarity. Sometimes we think we're saying something, but that's not what people are understanding. So you want to ask them, this is the grant, this is my proposal. Does it align with the grant requirements? Do you think it fits? Okay. And then you can do that for maybe 2 or 3 people. You take their feedback, you apply it, you edit your work, and now we're ready to submit. We're finally there. All right. So do not be a procrastinator. I told you, this is about personality. This is not about just getting money. you have to be organized. You have to be on time. Do not submit 1 hour before the deadline. Submit the day before. That way they can say to you, oh, I noticed you tried to upload this document, but we didn't receive this, or we also need this. And because you're not late, you can still submit it on time, right? So submit before the deadline. Make sure you included everything that they required, and then do a screenshot of the result. Like when you press submit, screenshot that screen that says thank you for your submission. That way you have evidence that you submitted it. Okay. So we're almost done. You're like, oh, we submitted it. What else is there to do? Well, you might want to follow up. Sometimes you don't get a thank you for your application. So you want to find a contact and email the person, email the organization saying, hi, I emailed on such date at such time, and I noticed I never got a confirmation. So I'm just writing to find out if you received it. And maybe someone will respond and say, yes, we absolutely received. That happened to me recently. I applied for something and I didn't get a response. And I was like, wait, they asked me for it. I submitted it, but I never heard. So I replied, I said, hi, how are you? Just checking if you got my application. And they said, yes, yes, yes. And then they said, but we want more information, right? So if I didn't follow up, then I would have missed the deadline and I wouldn't even know what they needed. And I would have been rejected not knowing what they needed. Sometimes it's an extra document. Sometimes there's a clarifying question. And as always, be polite, be professional, be respectful, okay? Be persistent, but be respectful in your communication. Remember, they're the ones with the money. They're doing us a favor. So we want to be very polite and professional, right? And then now step 10 is really just a waiting game. We're waiting patiently. We have an Excel sheet that told us when we applied and when we would hear by. So you want to maybe save that on your calendar. You open your calendar and you're like, hey, it's been 6 weeks and I haven't heard. Let me check my email. You want to keep checking your email, check your texts. Do you have any missed calls? Do you have any voicemails? And then maybe you open that email and you're like, congratulations, you've been chosen. You're going to receive the grant. You want to respond, thank you so much. Please let me know what the next steps are. And they'll tell you, yeah, just fill out this form, a W-2, because yes, you have to file taxes for all the grants that you receive as income. And then they'll send you a check, and it's as easy as that. Just respond immediately and be graceful and thankful, right? Okay. So in summary, research the grants, know your business, review the eligibility criteria, prepare all the materials that you think you may need or that the eligibility tells you that you need to submit, write a compelling proposal, tell your story. Everyone loves a good business story. Follow the instructions carefully, create a detailed budget, seek feedback from peers or mentors, submit on time, follow up, and wait patiently, right? So you've applied for your grant. Congratulations. You're all set. You're all done. Okay. So let's pause right here. Please, in the chat, put some questions. I'll give you some time to think and process, and then we'll move on to section 2 of where to find these grants.
Melissa, we do have a couple questions that have come in. Do you want to answer them now while we're here?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. The first one is from Mary. It says, for the proposal, what format is this? Essay style, bullet points, formal, storytelling?
Great question. So they will let you know, like literally they'll detail. They'll say, tell us why your business started. They'll even tell you in 50 words or less, tell us how your business. Sometimes they'll say, they'll ask like list 4 objectives. What are your 4 goals? So they will specify, but that's a good question. Thank you.
All right. And the other question from Mary is for letters of recommendation, do we ask them to be sent to us as the grant people applying? Send them to the people directly, right?
So whenever I don't have a specific grant in mind, but I have a specific person, I'll ask them to write me a letter and ask to send them to me, and I will save it. Because let's say you found a grant the night before and you have everything that you need except letters, you can upload it and then you can make a note that says, this person is traveling, you can contact them here, right? So at least I have it. But most times they will ask, give you a link and say, list your references with their emails or phone numbers, and then they'll respond to them and ask them for the letters. But it's always best to ask ahead of time, even before you know what you're applying for. That way the person at least has a copy on their document and they can just edit it to the specific funder as needed. Good question.
All right. We do have another question, but I think it might go a little bit with your next topic. So maybe we'll save that if you want to keep going.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you. All right. So where do we find grants? So again, what are the different types of grants? Local, state, corporate, and federal. So if we're looking for specific types of grants and we want to go to our local organizations, like sometimes our own banks will have grants. You can nominate like a nonprofit to get a grant. All right, so we can go to the specific area. So let's go find some links. Okay, so we can go to connecticut.gov. We can go to the Connecticut Council on Developmental Disabilities for a grant. You can go to the Connecticut Department of Agriculture, the Department of Energy, CT Innovations. There was one called CT Next that I got a $500 grant from. Unfortunately, I don't really know what the story is, but I went to the website this morning and it wasn't there anymore. So I think that one is no longer funding. But so that's why you have to stay accurate and keep updating your Excel sheet because sometimes they exist and sometimes they don't, right? So depending on what industry you're in, you can literally go to that specific department of your state government and find grants there. Okay. Then there's a U.S. Economic Development Administration. It's just eda.gov. You can look for grant resources and find a whole directory that are related to your economic development. Then there's grants.gov that I keep mentioning. Some of these are free. Most of like the government ones tend to be free, but there are other grant ones that you'll find that will say you can see the first 10 for free, but then they want you to make a payment. I don't usually pay, but if you want to, that's your choice. Then there's SBA.gov. Now, SBA.gov does give organizations money, but they won't give you and I money. Rather, they'll give companies that help entrepreneurs. And then, so those companies like maybe like a Reset Social Impact or maybe like a Yukon will apply to small business, the SBA for money. And then when we apply to Yukon or apply to Reset or like Girls for Technology or something like that. So they're these companies that do pitch competitions and they're business accelerators that help small businesses to learn about financing and literally all the things that I talked about today. They will teach you how to do all of those things. So they will have money and you're literally applying to them for the money. So we won't get the money from SBA, but those companies will, if that's clear. Right, so there are economic development agencies within each state. So I'm based in Connecticut, so all of these are in Connecticut and they're regional, right? So there's a New England trade adjustment, there's Northwest, Southeastern, South Central. So you could just literally go to their website and see if there are any grants available. And then depending on what industry you're in, are you in automotive, are you in banking, are you in real estate, are you in childcare? The WBDC has a grant specific for childcare businesses startup, and they actually help you with the application. So like I said, when you're searching in Google, be specific. Do you want to search for like maybe a corporate grant, right? Amazon, what do they fund? American Express, Chase, Coca-Cola, Comcast, FedEx has one every single year. Ford, Google, Verizon, Visa, NBC Universal, Walmart, all of these, even Home Depot, all of these big corporations provide grants for our small businesses to help us grow. Okay, so check out those links. My favorite online database is Hello Alice. I signed up for their newsletter. So every time a new grant comes out, they'll email me and they're like, Amber grant is due in a month. Is due in a month, right? So GrantWatch is a good one, but my favorite is Hello Alice. So you can sign up for newsletters and they'll actually let you know when grants are coming up. Now, there are grants for specific types of businesses, whether you're a minority-owned businesses. Here are some examples that you can apply for your small business if you're eligible. Remember, it's always about reading about the criteria. Then they're for nonprofits. I know I think it was half nonprofit, half for-profit in here. I had never applied for a nonprofit grant because I'm not a nonprofit, but there are a lot. Okay, so go ahead. Hartford Foundation of Public Giving, I recommend them. Go check that out. Then there are veteran-owned businesses, lots available. And then this one I like. So these are for women-owned businesses, but I liked the organization. I got this from CNN. They literally did exactly what I talked about, putting things in a spreadsheet. So what's the name of the grant? Who can apply? What's the amount? And when are the deadlines, right? So this is how you organize your information. So you're like, oh, it's monthly. I missed it this month, but I can apply next month. Oh, it's only due from September to November. Okay, I will make sure I'm prepared for September, right? So this is how you truly want to just stay organized. And it's like a second job now, but you're funding your business and it's free. So that's good news. And then you can check out your local chamber. So you can go on to US Chambers of Commerce, right? uschamber.com. And if you're in Connecticut, search Connecticut and you'll find the one closest to you. So for me, it's the Connecticut River Valley, but for you, it might be like Bloomfield or depending on where you are. Okay, so find your Chamber of Commerce. I think you have to pay a membership to be a member, a membership fee to be a member, but they always have great speakers, they have great resources, and you can get a mentor there and learn about opportunities like grants. Okay, so I'm just about finished, and I cannot end without talking about the pros and cons of applying for grants. Everybody loves applying for grants because it's free money, right? Of course, you don't have to pay it back. That's a benefit. It's accessible, it's online, it's not hidden, it's not a secret society. You can literally just go to Google and say small business grants, I don't know, May 2024. So it's very easy to find, okay? And then one of the benefits is what's called a waterfall effect. So in the beginning, you apply, denied, apply, denied, apply, denied. But somehow, once you get that first grant, you get the next one and the next one and the next one, because you learned how to tailor your material. You've learned how to give a compelling story. You've developed confidence too, right? Once you get one, you develop confidence, like, I'm going to keep going for it. And it also increases your credibility. You feel good about yourself, but other businesses trust you because they're like, wait, if Chase gave her money, then she must have a good business. If Citibank gave her money, then she must have a good business, or she might have a compelling story. And everybody wants to be part of your success. It's called basking in reflected glory. It's called burgeoning, right? It's this idea that everybody wants to be associated with successful people. It's why we wear our athletes' jerseys after they win, but never after they lose a game, okay? So those are some of the pros. It sounds great. Free money, easy to apply, and you keep getting it. Once you get one, you keep getting it, and then you gain credibility in your community. People want to work with you. People want to sponsor you. People want to hire you for your services. So that's great. So you're like, so what kind of cons could there be for applying for grants? It's so time consuming. The time it takes to find them first, right? So you find all of these grants, you go through all of the criteria necessary to apply for the grants. It's not always easy to receive because they're competitive. A lot of them are competitive. There are hundreds of businesses competing for the same amount of money, okay? So it's difficult to receive at first. You get it, you spend it, and yeah, you got some success, but you need more. You need to keep getting it, right? You need more to keep you afloat. And most of them aren't renewable unless you're a nonprofit, okay? And then the last con I would say is that there's strings attached. So one thing could be like they might ask you for an interview. They might want to use you as a ambassador. They might invite you to a speaking engagement to say, oh, you received this grant. So they might ask you, it sounds great because you're speaking, but yeah, you're speaking, which means you're not working on your business, which is actually making your money. And those speaking engagements may not be money. Other strings attached, oh my God, the surveys. Every 6 months, they will ask you to complete a survey because they need to show the government that the money that they give us is benefiting these businesses. They want to know that we're still alive, that we're still functioning, and that they didn't waste the government's money. So they need data to prove to the government to keep giving them funding. A lot of people get the money and don't fill out those surveys, but I urge you to fill it out. Do not close the door behind you. The way to keep getting funding is to show that the businesses are succeeding because of their help. So please fill out the surveys. Yes, they're time consuming, especially the more, right? The waterfall effect. If you just got 10 grants, it means that every 6 months you're filling out 10 surveys, right? So there are strings attached, but clearly the pros outweigh the cons. So I do encourage you to apply for the grants. I have not regretted ever applying for grants. It's always saved me when I needed it most. And I've been able to grow, free my time, hire an intern, right? So it's been very helpful. All right, any questions? Any new questions pertaining to that? All right.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so one last thing. So I have other sources of funding. I'm not going to go through them here. I'll show you my slides really quickly, but it's just, here are some loans family, friends, like I'm not going to go through them, but you will have access to all these other resources. Please get yourself a mentor for everything, one for marketing, one for finance. You need mentors, okay? The best tennis players, the best basketball players, they have mentors, they have coaches. So make sure you have a mentor. Social media also has great places to find grants. And then, like I said, sign up for newsletters. And I am Dr. John. If you have any questions, I'm here for you. I'm going to stop sharing, and then I will answer any questions you may have. All right.
Thank you so much for that. And before we actually start the Q&A, we want to follow up on what Melissa just said, which is having a mentor is often a good idea for things, anything to do with your business, especially if finance is challenging for you and you know you need to fill out all that information, or marketing isn't your strong suit. And again, you need to have a compelling story. And so we offer mentoring services at SCORE, which you are under no obligation to avail yourself of. It's an option for you. And so we have a poll at the end of every one of our sessions, which asks, do you already have a SCORE mentor? And would you like one if you don't? And so if you answer no to the first question and yes to the second question, then Steve will send you one email telling you how you can find a mentor. And that'll be it. No one's going to hound you. No one's going to harass you. No one's going to do anything like that. We simply are here to help you if you would like it. And if not, that's fine too, because we know that these workshops are helpful too. So with that, let's get to the Q&A. And if you have more questions, feel free to enter them in the chat box now. First one's from Judith. Any idea how many grants exist and how competitive they are? % of startups that receive grant money?
I don't have those statistics, but you can find them. I saw this morning when I was searching for the Connecticut databases, they had these pie charts that would say what businesses got. So certainly the information is out there, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
And I can't imagine it's up to date, because aggregating that for the whole country and every possible grantor is challenging. So I would imagine it's going to be probably based on some kind of slice of the population, whether it be industry or type of grant or something, because that's a pretty generic question and it's not that easy to answer. How do grant makers typically assess the impact of funded projects? And what strategies can a small business use to demonstrate their project's outcomes and achievements in accordance with the reporting requirements?
That is a great question. So in terms of impact, they're companies that literally evaluate your impact, but it depends on the type of funding that you're looking for as well. But there are things that you can talk about. You can talk about governance. So how do you operate your business? Do you have a board of directors, and who are those board of directors? What does your hierarchy in terms of your organization look like? And who are your customers and your clients, right? So that's one way to show impact. You can show impact in your community. Do you donate 10% of your funds? Do you, I don't know, recycle? Do you consider how much water usage? So you can think about environment. What else? They're like, if you Google like impact measures or metrics, you can find like these 5 key terms of how to demonstrate your impact. But again, it depends on your project, because you could be saving money and saving trees, but if that's not what the goal of your project is, then it doesn't matter. So it has to have an alignment.
Here's a comment from John. CT Next was absorbed into DECD. So now we know why they disappeared.
Thank you.
Gloria asks, do all grants require us to fill out a 1099? My accountant suggests against grants because of the amount it can cost me, but it's not earned income. Can you provide some clarity?
Steve, do you want to help with that one?
I was thinking when I saw this question, I don't know the answer to this one. It's a bit of a blind spot for me. I'm not a tax accountant, but I would consult with your tax accountant and just to understand what the ramifications are of receiving grants on your taxable income and what you need to complete with your tax return. So I apologize. We don't know the answer to that one.
Yeah, I don't
Also,
either.
The answer is no, not all require. So like if you, let's say you did a pitch competition, you got $500, you may not get any kind of proof that you got that, but you want to report it anyway. But for like the bigger ones, you might. And then even sometimes you do like pitch competitions or accelerators, and they might give you a stipend. Sometimes they'll still send you a tax form saying, we sent you 2,000. Because remember, they want to show where their money is going and they need to keep records of that. But I don't think you should not apply because you have to show support on your taxes. You want your business to grow and you need funding to grow.
Yeah, my advice to folks would be, especially if you're gonna, apply for a lot of grants and hopefully receive a lot of them, is obviously Melissa's record keeping and organization tips are super important. But just consult with your accountant on what the rules of the road are. That way you can incorporate whatever documentation and reporting you need to put into your organization process.
Yeah. And as you're keeping track of those the records that the grants that you do get, you want to show that you spent the money on what you said you'd spend it on. So it's almost like, I don't want to say a write-off, but if you got $10,000 and you're buying a $10,000 equipment, then it's not really income because it kind of like cancel each other out. Does that make sense to you?
Mary asks, for private companies like banks, is it best to approach a local branch or the corporate office?
For grants or for loans?
For grants. I can speak to that one.
Okay.
Because one, I worked for a bank, and two, I'm on the board of a nonprofit organization that got a corporate grant from a bank. There's usually an office that does that. And so you want to find who that contact is. You can try to go through the branch, but they're not really going to be able to help you unless you have a personal relationship with someone at a branch who can introduce you to the person who's in charge of it. But there is a department. Sometimes it's one person, depending on how small the bank is. Could be a large department that does all of that. So they do, it's the corporate giving department. So you definitely are going to have to go through there at some point. The only question is how do you get there? Straight or through someone you already know? Could we have Melissa's contact information again, please? Will that be on the slides that everyone gets?
On the slide, yes.
So just a reminder, in case you weren't all here, at the beginning when Steve talked about it, you will get an email with a link to the replay of this workshop, as well as a link to Melissa's presentation. And the last page of her presentation has her contact information on it, so you'll have access to that. Plus, you'll notice that many of the things in her slides were links, and so you can click on them and go directly to wherever those links go, which is fantastic. All right. Another person, I have a SCORE mentor, but I hadn't thought about having a mentor for different aspects of the business. Can you talk about how this works, please? Yes, you have a primary mentor who is your business mentor in pretty much everything. You're kind of your catch-all mentor. But when there is subject matter expertise needed, there's two ways to go about it. First of all, you want to have that conversation with your primary mentor and say, I'd really like to bring in a co-mentor with a specialty at this time, if possible. And then either they can search for somebody for you, or you can search the SCORE database yourself. And if you find somebody that seems perfect, they could be anywhere in the country. Then the only question is what's their availability? Sometimes they're not available to be in a meeting, but they will answer email questions. And sometimes they can come directly on the call and act as a co-mentor on the call or in person. Obviously, if they live across the country, they're not going to show up in person. But if you're meeting on Zoom, it doesn't matter. And so, yes, that's one of the beauties of SCORE is we're local and we're national. So you definitely have the advantage of both.
Yeah, that was exactly my experience. So Steve helped me with all my finances. And I said, I was struggling with marketing, and he introduced me to someone for marketing. And I actually met her in person. She showed up at one of my vending events. So that was awesome.
All right, Teresa says, thanks for this great information. I own a sign language company, and we're seeking funding to provide emergency sign language for youth in every middle school in the state. I don't know if I should focus my time on seeking funding from a government entity or if I would have more success from a foundation. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I recommend both, but I think you might have more success at the more local foundation level, like a Hartford Foundation giving. But if you truly want to go into the schools, you have to get support from the schools. To have either a principal or meet with the Board of Ed, build your advisory team. That way they can actually be in support of your application. That way when you go to the government, they see that it's value that people want. So let me just say that again. As an individual, go to the community foundation. But if you're ready to go to schools and actually implement your program, make sure you have the support of the stakeholders.
We have a couple people thanking you.
It's been
All right.
I love
And another one. I have a nonprofit that offers bereavement services to inmates. Do you have a recommendation as to where I seek grants?
community foundations again.
The more local, the better in this case.
Yeah.
If you're in Middlesex County, there's one called the Community Foundation of Middletown or Middlesex County. I can't remember. They're excellent. And that one that you mentioned that was in Hartford is probably very similar. They really want to focus their efforts on people who are working in the community. And that's an excellent way to work in the community. So, yeah. I have a couple questions while we're waiting. Is there any way to determine what your chances are? Because when you were talking about, well, if there's only going to be one recipient, that's not as good as if there's 10. But what if there's 10,000 people applying for the 10 grants versus only 100 people applying for one? Like, is there any way to know how many other people tend to apply so you have any idea what your chances are?
I don't think so. And also, I don't know if it was Michael Phelps that said it, but when you're swimming, you swim and you run your race, you swim your race, you stay in your lane. You don't look left, you don't look right. Don't worry about what else is going on around you. Just focus on your business, your needs, your goals, and go after them. If I thought about all the businesses that were either bigger than me, better than me, more financially successful than me, it would make me not want to apply, right? So I don't really focus on that. Even if the data suggested that I was more successful than not, that still doesn't mean I'm going to get it, right? It's all risk. It's risk analysis. So just apply anyway.
So do you think that it's more if the grant seems more aligned with you than it is about whether there's one of them or 10 of them?
Yeah, it's all
even
about,
though that would be a factor.
yes.
Okay.
And remember, there are also formula grants that are looking like who fits the best. And yeah, this is a good business, but they don't really need it as much as this one. So sometimes you might apply and they give it to you anyway, not because you were the best business, but they loved your story or they loved your mission. So I'm not concerned with, I don't know. I'm not supposed to be where I am today if I followed statistics, right? A Black woman in America. So I can't get boggled down by those numbers.
Okay, that's helpful. Mary wants to know how to get in touch with the bereavement person for inmates. Now I don't know if the Q&A, can everybody see the questions or can we only see the questions?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. And our chat is disabled.
Yes. So Rolando, if you would like Mary to be in touch with you, please put in the Q&A that you would like us to put you in touch with each other, and we will do that offline. That's probably the best way to do it.
That offline.
So I'm going to write down Mary.
I love to see people networking.
Rolando. Okay. Just so we don't lose track of who it was. Okay, great. Do you have suggestions for places to look for grants for businesses owned by someone who is disabled?
Yeah, so one of those slides that I have has Connecticut Association of Disability. That's the first place I would apply. But yeah, a lot of these slides you can find. But again, do a Google search, grants for disabled business owners. That wasn't a search I did intentionally, but there's certain businesses for those.
I'm trying to open a nonprofit thrift store in Windsor. Who might be best for me to apply for a grant?
One of the slides has grants for nonprofit businesses as well.
Great. Okay, so yes, everybody can see all the questions. So Rolando, if you...
Rolando
Yes.
responded. So
Awesome.
Mary and Rolando, I will connect the two of you this afternoon.
Perfect. All right, Susan, my question should have read, do you have suggestions? Oh, I did figure it out. Okay, never mind. That was Susan with the thing about disabilities. Also, Teresa King. Mary wants to be in touch with Teresa King as well. So that's up to you, Teresa. You can type in the Q&A box if you're okay with that. And meanwhile, I have a couple other questions while we're waiting. One of the things that struck me was when you talked about your compelling purpose. And is there any way for you to try to almost get underneath what people say, the grantors say, to try and match, see if your compelling purpose actually aligns with theirs?
Yeah, that was something I meant to say too. So you know how when you apply for a job, there's certain keywords that they put in the job description. You want to make sure those keywords are in your resume and in your statement. It's the same thing. When you're writing for a grant, use the keywords that they're using. You don't know if it's an AI that's filtering out which ones they want to search. So you want to use their words. Another thing about compelling story, make sure it's free of jargons. Make sure it's free of abbreviations. When we're in our own industry, we like to use these shorthanded words, and someone who's not in your industry doesn't know what you're talking about. So be as clear as possible and just speak passionately about your business.
Jargon and acronyms, right? Those are always
Yeah.
the ones.
And another question is, once we get a grant from somebody, what else can we do to build a relationship with them on an ongoing basis so that they get to know us a little bit better and potentially would think more kindly about granting us another one?
So I was looking at some frequently asked questions on some of the different grants agencies, and some of the questions were like, is there someone to help us? Is there someone to communicate with? Usually they have a team, right? So even if you made a connection to one person, it's not going to guarantee that they're going to fund you later, right? The bigger the organization, the less likely you are to have that one person that you connect with. The smaller the organization, yes. But if they're not in the business of repeating the same business, it doesn't even matter if you have a relationship. The only time I would say that you need a relationship is like, let's say that whoever the funding organization is, you want to maybe serve on their board, then you want to maintain a relationship. Or if you think that a speaking engagement or speaking opportunities would avail themselves and that would help build your brand and your accessibility and the awareness of your business, then maintain those relationships. But in terms of more money, I don't think relationships are gonna be beneficial there. More
Well,
opportunity.
I was thinking particularly of grants that they sometimes, allow you to reapply for
Okay.
2 or 3 years before, and then they say you have to rotate off after 2 or 3 years. Are they more predisposed to choosing someone a second time who has made an effort to work with them, thank them, do
Yes.
something to show that it's not just, gee, thanks for the money and I'll never hear from me again, versus somebody who goes out of their way to promote their cause or whatever?
Absolutely. Yeah. We work with people we like, trust, and respect, but also we have to make sure that we're being authentic. Because if we're just doing it just for the money aspect, people can read right through us, right? So as long as you're being authentic, then people will see that. But yeah, relationships are great. You don't want to turn your back on people who have helped you. So always keep in touch.
Thanks. We don't have any further questions at this time.
This was great, Melissa. Thank you very much. I think we can probably wrap it up there we're a little bit after 1 o'clock. Before we stop the recording, we do want to remind folks that you can see all of our webinars on our YouTube channel by searching Greater Hartford SCORE. And while you're on there, you can subscribe and you'll be notified for future webinars as they are posted. I want to thank Melissa for joining us today and just delivering this wonderful presentation. There's so many great resources. This is a great topic for small business owners. And just thank you so much for taking the time to prepare all this material, and for coming today and sharing it with these fellow business owners. So I think we can go ahead and stop the recording there, and thank everybody for joining us today.